Well, hello and welcome to episode 22 of the Mark Medley Show. Always a pleasure to be with you wherever you may be, whatever time zone you're listening in, whatever distribution site you may be listening on, whether it's Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Wonder Radio, YouTube, Google Play Music, Stitcher. Regardless of where you may be catching the show, always a pleasure to be with you. This is Mark Medley, your host, and tonight's episode is titled The Ripple Effects of Doing What You Are Passionate About. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard the old adage or the cliche, follow your passion. Look for something that you would do and wouldn't even have to get paid for. Do what you love and the money will follow. As a matter of fact, great book. I've read it and really couldn't agree with it more. But interestingly enough, when I was doing a little bit of research for this episode, I came across some articles that were counter to the notion of looking for your passion or doing what you love. Because they asked the question, well, what happens when you do your passion and the money doesn't follow? What happens when doing what you love doesn't bring on the money? Or is there such a thing as loving to do one thing, and that's the only thing that you can do? And what happens, as one author brings up, when it's a situation where she uses the example, she loves sex, but it doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to get paid for that. She's a writer, and she loves writing as well, but she emphasizes the point that she loves sex, but that may be a passion of hers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where she's going to make her money. So that gave me a different perspective and a different thought in terms of everything that I'd ever heard about working with bliss, working your passion. So that's where I came up with the ripple effects of doing what you are passionate about. Because what the counter author suggested was not necessarily doing so much what you're passionate about, but doing what you are. Doing where your strengths are. Doing things that are your strengths. And that made sense to me. Actually, both views make sense to me. And the reason I'm doing this particular podcast tonight is because I know the things that I'm passionate about doing. And one of the questions I might have for you would be, or at least I would think you should be able to feel an energy shift when you're doing things you're passionate about. Case in point, I've been an adjunct professor on a couple of other occasions, a couple of different universities or colleges. One was Fairleigh Dickinson University. I had a 4-year stint there. Then I had a 4-year stint at Passaic County Community College. It's been a few years since I've been in the classroom. And on last night, I stepped back into the college classroom at my alma mater, William Patterson University. And it was a thrill to be back on the college campus teaching, to be back in the classroom, to be back in front of college students. I had a class of 18, 17 of the 18 appeared. In fact, the show, or shall I say the class, is about what I'm doing right now. It's radio news, and a part of the curriculum is podcasting. So I don't know if any of my students are listening to this, because I did ask that they follow and subscribe and download to the Mark Medley Show as a part of their homework. So maybe a notification will pop up letting them know that the latest podcast was entered, or the latest episode is about. So the impetus for this particular episode is the experience I had last night in class with my 17 students. And each time I step onto a college campus or into a classroom, there's a whole different energy that I feel. Years ago, whenever I was teaching at Fairleigh Dickinson University, at the same time during the day, I was working for the largest telecommunications company in the world at that time. This was prior to cellular really kicking off. We had what we called landlines. And I was working for that company, and I was teaching at Fairleigh Dickinson during the evening. As a matter of fact, it was on Thursday evenings. And I could not wait for Thursday evenings to come because I knew I would be teaching that class. So much so that I ultimately left corporate America and went back to my passion, which was education. I went into the field of education and worked my way through the ranks from teacher to coach to facilitator to vice principal to where I currently am principal. During that time, I also took on a teaching position at Passaic County Community College, and again, whatever night or nights my class was on, I could not wait for that night to come. Well, the same phenomenon occurred with me on last night. I could not wait for last night at 6 o'clock to get here because I could not wait to get on that college campus in my classroom with my students. And where I'm going with this is, ever since I found out or learned that I was going to be instructing this course this year, because I've had a layoff for about 3 or 4 years of teaching at the college level. So since the time that I've learned that I was going to now be teaching this course, I've had a different energy level and an energy shift, and it's impacted every other area of my life. It's impacted my day job, it's impacted my relationships, it's impacted other areas of my life in a positive way. Because I was going back into something that I'm passionate about, which is teaching, everything else was impacted. There was a ripple effect because of the energy that came from the fact that I was once again going to be a professor on the college campus. And last night did not let me down. Of course, the first nights are always very interesting as professor and students meet each other for the first time. Everybody's trying to feel each other out. But still, the feeling, the energy that I felt the first time whenever I was an adjunct professor at Fairleigh Dickinson, the same energy I felt the second time when I was now hired by Passaic County Community College is the same energy that I felt last night, now stepping onto the campus of William Paterson University. Anytime that I have the opportunity to teach, because my passions are teaching, writing, public speaking, broadcasting on things such as podcasts and on my radio show, The Reading Circle with Mark Medley, anything kind of communication related is my passion, which goes into what the author was saying about really doing what your strengths are. So I go to my strengths, and that's where the bulk of my energy comes from, is when I'm doing something in my strength. Like right now, totally different energy level because I'm doing something I love to do, which is talk, which is to teach, which is to coach, which is to broadcast, which is to hopefully share tips that will make life better for somebody else. I'm in my element. When I walk into my school in the morning and I'm leading teachers as a principal, I'm in my element. When I'm serving as an adjunct professor, I'm in my element. When I'm teaching a public speaking course, I'm in my element. Whenever I'm giving a speech, I'm in my element. And interestingly enough, when I teach the public speaking course, I always start the course and share with the students that studies have shown that people would rather die than to get up and speak in front of other people. Think about that. Now people would rather die than to get up and speak in front of other people. But for me, that is a passion. That is a love. I absolutely love public speaking. Absolutely love teaching. Absolutely love being in front of a crowd. And because I have the opportunity to do those things, it gives me an energy shift. It takes me to a different place. It makes me more focused. It makes me more determined. Matter of fact, I was thinking about this today. It makes me something that I'm having a hard time finding a word for, but I know it gives me more of it. My whole disposition changes whenever I'm doing something within my passion. Now, the flip side is when you're doing something you hate. That's why it's not good to do something that you really are not interested in or really hate for a long period of time. You might have to do it for a short period of time until you can find what it is that you really love to do, but it's not good to do on a long-term basis. I shared with you I worked at one point for the largest telecommunications company in the world. I worked for them for 15 years. And probably out of the 15 years, maybe 10 or 11 of them were great. But there were a few years that it wasn't. And when I got down to the last 2 years, for me, it was absolutely miserable. I was into assignments that really were not my strengths. I was into a lot of number type assignments that were not my strength. And it got to the point where I really did not even want to get up in the morning and go to work. That is a bad place to be. When I left corporate America and went into education, my whole disposition changed. I couldn't wait to get up in the mornings to go to work. That's what I mean by an energy shift or a ripple effect, because it carries over. It carries over into everything else. It carries over into how quick you're ready to get out of bed in the morning, what mindset you're going to be in during your commute, whether you love going to where it is that you work or you dread going in there. And each one, whether it's passion, love, dread, brings on a different energy. And depending on that energy will determine what you attract. So if you are full of dread, full of negativity, and now you're going into your workplace, guess what you're attracting to you? More negativity. If you're excited and positive going into your workplace, again, I ask the question, guess what you draw to you? For the most part, positivity. And you bring people around you or attract people to you who are positive, or you can attract people to you who are negative. But it all comes from the energy that you're putting out. And my preposition or my supposition or my theory or my hypothesis or whatever word you want to use is that when you're doing something that you love to do, it'll give you the positive energy to attract more of it. For me, having stepped in that classroom last night put me on a high. Because for me, interacting with college students, working on a college campus, or giving a speech, or public speaking, or writing in my blog, or doing this podcast, all of that gives me energy, and it gives me a positive energy. So I encourage you, in the words of Judge Lance Ito back in the 90s, I admonish you. I can't get the point and emphasize it enough for you to do things that are your strengths. See, you're not going to get me to teach an algebra course because that's not a strength of mine, nor do I have interest in it. And I'm not mad at the people who do. I'm not mad at mathematicians. That's their strength. But that's not my strength. So you will always find me doing something with writing, reading, or speaking. Those are my strengths. Those I get excited about. And I can tell when the ripple effects of doing those things, I can tell it going out into all other aspects of my life. So I encourage you to do the same. Continue to experiment and find and play to your strengths. And just see what the ripple effects are of doing what you love. I thank you again for listening to the Mark Medley Show. I truly encourage you to subscribe, download, follow, whatever the directive is for whatever platform that you're on. Please do it because, truth be told, we need the numbers. I thank you. Have a great time until we get together again.